Welcome to another episode of the Bug Bite hosted by yours truly, Tech Coach Ralph, where we are engineered to win. In today's episode of the Bug Bite, we once again have to touch on this topic of 23andMe, but we are not going to be looking at it from a particular aspect of what 23andMe went wrong. We are going to be reviewing another TechCrunch article, but this time they are talking about companies who get their data violated should get the death penalty in a corporate point of view. So we're going to be checking that out. But first, if you are new to the channel, or maybe you've been watching for a while and you like what you see, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can know every single time we drop new content, and like the video, share the video with everyone, and if you haven't done so yet, check out the Patreon at www.techcoachralph.dev so you can level up your technical skills with me. All right. But let's get into our article. It's not going to be a long one, but I do have some thoughts about ideas of, giving companies the death penalty. All right. So let's get straight into it. So, like I said, this article is from TechCrunch, and I will put the link to the article in the description of the video in case you want to read it for yourself. But the title says DNA companies should receive the title is DNA companies should receive severe penalties for losing our data. All right. And this is by Haj Han Kamps. And it reads, personal data is the new gold. The recent 23andMe data breach is a stark reminder of a chilling reality. Most of our intimate personal information might not be as secure as we think. It's a damning indictment of the sheer negligence of companies that, while profiting from our DNA, are failing to protect it. So my first thought about this, right? Why are the companies profiting from our DNA? Well, the reason that they're profiting from it is because we are openly and willingly sharing it, right? I remember when social media started to get popular. So now it's just one step further, right? Now this is like social media of our DNA. But when social media first started coming out there, we would put all of our information, all of our business on our social media profiles. And now we probably put even more, right? You can go on someone's Twitter or their Instagram now, even LinkedIn, and don't forget their Facebook. Then you can find out all about their lives. Like you know what they ate for breakfast, what they ate for lunch, what they ate for dinner, how many times they went to the bathroom that day, who they cursed out at their job, all this type of thing, right? So we choose to share that information with these companies, right? So the only reason that they're profiting off of our DNA is because we are paying them to have it, right? So yeah, so that's what I see with it, right? I don't think that my personal information is secure with anyone. The same way that we had the Equifax breach or whatever those credit monitoring companies are. And I never asked them to monitor my data, but it is what it is. So let's keep going. The 23andMe breach saw hackers gaining access to a whopping 6.9 million users' personal information, including family trees, birth years, and geographic locations, right? So like I said in the video from last week, 6.9 million personal user information or user personal information. It brings to the forefront a few significant questions. Are companies really doing enough to protect our data? Should we trust them with our most intimate information? Well, as far as this question right here, should we trust them with our most intimate information? The answer is no for me, right? But are they doing enough to protect our data? I don't know how we can measure that, right? How can we measure that? Because if we have hackers from different all around the world, some hackers from even within the country, they can log into the most sensitive data that we have from the government, right? From they can hack into the NSA or the CIA or whatever it is that they're hacking into, the FBI, then I'm not very surprised when they're hacking into these type of companies, right? It's a game of the bad guys versus the good guys, right? I can't say they're doing enough or they're not doing enough because you only know what you know at the time. It's like with police, right? Police try to prevent crime, but I personally feel at the end of the day that they normally show up to find where the dead bodies are and move them along, right? They show up after a crime is committed. They don't show up before a crime is committed, you know? Because if there's no crime committed, then what are you going to do, right? So companies are promising to keep our data safe, but there are a couple of quirks here. Government overreach is certainly a possibility, as the FBI and every policing agency in the world is probably salivating at the thought of getting access to such a huge data set of DNA sequences. It could be a gold mine for every cold case from here to the South Pole. That is true. I agree. Definitely agree with that. The argument, but if you haven't done something wrong, you have nothing to worry about, is only partially applicable here. The problem is one of consent. My father at one point did a DNA test and discovered he had a half brother who is about to turn 80. Cue an incredible amount of family drama when they started digging into the history and unearthed a whole bunch of potentially problematic family history. So, another thing that I want to mention about if you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. Well, I think you do have something to worry about, right? Because we see that there are people who are released from jail or from prison after how God knows how many years, right? That they've been locked up for something that they were accused of that they didn't do, right? But it can be easily flipped on the other side that who like if we all heard of like the police framing people, the FBI framing people, and stuff like that. Now, if they have a bevy of DNA information that they can manipulate and put wherever they want to put in, I don't want them to be having access to my personal to my DNA or my relative's DNA or anyone's DNA, right? So it's not if you haven't done something wrong, you have nothing to worry about. Is if you haven't done something wrong, then I would worry about them trying to implicate me in something that I didn't do, right? So that's how I see it, right? So let's keep going, right? The problem isn't so much that my dad chose to do that. It is that I didn't consent to being in a database, and that's where things get sticky. I can envision a definite Black Mirror-esque future where one family member is curious about their ancestry, gets tested, and 2 weeks later, the FBI comes knocking on every person's door who shares 50% DNA with that person because they are wanted for some sort of crime. Well, I don't know if in like a legal term, if a judge would sign off on a warrant of everyone who has 50% DNA. You probably need a little bit more information than that, but I have to go back and watch some more law in order to make sure I'm right about that, right? And the other part about not consenting to being in a database, all you are is a name in a database at that point, right? It's not like it has like information about you is still public, right? So if the way I see it, if someone submits some information about themselves, right, and I am linked through that to that person via public information, then I become fair game, right? I don't have to consent based on what's public information. So if if someone provides like DNA, right, and they say that they are connected to a a relative of mine, right, and now through public information, I am also like it shows that I'm connected to that relative, so now it can make that connection. So it's all public information, and I don't like my consent isn't necessary for what I put out in the public domain. So the if you do not consent to your information being in a database, then you should really restrict how much public information you put out about you because what other people do that connects you to them, right? It's like the 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon, right? What other people put out about them that connects you to them, now you can become part of that database. It's like with policing when they're looking for who are their known contacts or known affiliations or known aliases, right? So the audacity of 23andMe and companies like it is astounding. They pitch themselves as guardians of our genetic history, as the gatekeepers of our ancestral past and potential medical futures. But when the chips are down and our data is leaked, they hide behind old we were not hacked. It was users' old password excuse, right? And I don't think it's an excuse, right? I think that it is the users using old passwords, but they could have also enabled like some type of two-factor authentication or something like that, especially for the severity of the information that they're dealing with. However, I I mean, I haven't really read their terms of services, but I never saw them mention themselves as guardian of our genetic history and the gatekeepers of our ancestral past. and potential medical futures, they might use that for some advertisement. But to make a promise like that, I've never heard it. And if they did, I would definitely wouldn't believe them. Right? It's just I think I'm more pessimistic in that aspect to like trust my like to trust a for-profit company in keeping me safe. I don't believe it, right? I don't I don't trust nonprofit companies. I don't trust government agencies in keeping me safe. I trust in myself to the best of my ability to keep me safe, right? So that's how I see it. So like I said in another video, like if whatever happens to me is my fault, right? Simple as that. So that's how it is at the end of the day, right? So this logic is equivalent to a bank saying it's not our fault your money got stolen. You should have had a better lock on your front door. It's unacceptable and a gross abdication of responsibility. That is not equivalent. I what does that's not I don't get it. Like this doesn't make any sense to me. A bank saying it's not our fault your money got stolen, but if my money got stolen at the bank, then me having a lock on my front door doesn't make any sense. But if but this doesn't make any sense because if what I use to access the bank is let's say let's say I put my PIN number out there publicly and somebody takes finds my card and takes my PIN number to get money out of it, then that is my fault, right? Or if what I use to log into my bank, um, it's not secure, like it's very like common, and they can guess it, right? And they're able to get into it, then that's my fault. Now, if the bank doesn't have some type of two factor authentication, I would say the bank could do a better job. But it's also my fault that I didn't make it more secure. Like I don't know. This argument sounds like whining and complaining to me, right? But anyways, let's keep going. Companies that deal with such sensitive data should be held to the highest possible standard. We're not just talking about credit card numbers or email addresses here. This is our DNA, the very blueprint of our existence. If anything should be considered sacred in the digital realm, surely it should be. And I say, if it is sacred to you, then don't send it to them, right? Like the most like, why is it that we feel necessary to share the most important parts of our lives with the world or with some random company, right? Are you gonna start recording what you do in your house like at 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and share that? I mean, some people do, right? But you know what I mean. Like, come on, this see, and this is the blame game, right? Because okay, while 23andMe is down, they want to kick them, right? I think that 23andMe, it sucks for them, right? But I also understand hackers and companies and trying to fight against these type of things from happening. Hackers are always going to try to get in, right? And I do think that is the companies do need to put some safeguards in place to force their customers to do what's best for them, right? Because if enabling two-factor authentication is enabled or is available, but some customers don't make it available, then I just saw on GitHub, right? They are making two-factor authentication required as I think towards the end of January, right? So no more being able to log in without two-factor authentication. You might have to use like a Google Authenticator app or something like that, right? But you know, I I think that the companies do have a responsibility for helping you do what's best for you, but I cannot put the full blame on them for that, you know? So the fact that the stolen data was advertised as a list of people with ancestries that have in the past been victims of systematic discrimination adds another disturbing layer of this debacle. What? It highlights the potential for such data to be misused in the most nefarious ways, including targeted attacks and discrimination. Okay, so now we are just going into the overreach and conspiracy theories and stuff like that. But it is what it is. This does not sound like a TechCrunch article to me. It sounds like an article that you hear on a different website. But whatever. Right. So the DNA testing industry needs to step up. It must ensure that the security measures in place are not just adequate but exceptional. They should be leading the charge in cybersecurity, setting an example for all other industries to follow. This is not just about better passwords or two-factor authentication. This is about a fundamental shift in how these companies view the data they are entrusted with. It's about recognizing the profound responsibility they have, not just to their customers, but to a society at large. Um, I I totally disagree with this, right? Um, maybe I am too much of a capitalist, but I believe that the companies have to do what is in their best interest. But as what like so doing this, right? Um, the 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 idea of doing this, I agree. The premise of why they should do it, I disagree, right? Because as a company, right, whether you're public or private, your loyalty is to your shareholders, right? So you want to turn a profit and everything like that. It's a for-profit company. But I think the best service to your shareholders is to protect your customers to the best of your ability, right? Because if you do not protect your customers to the best of your ability, you're going to lose customers, and then the shareholders are going to not be too happy with you, right? So being being like the doing the best that you can to protect customers. Which guess what? I don't think that um, they deliberately cause the data to be leaked or anything like that, right? Um, you know, if what they said is correct through credential stuffing of another service that this happened, then But to like, if I'm gonna say this, if 23andMe had two-factor authentication enabled, right, enforced for all their customers, then this wouldn't even be a story, right? But this is an opportunity to be down on a large company, right? So whatever. I think this the person who wrote this article is reaching, but whatever. Am I hopeful? Not even a little. I long argued that after the Equifax breach, the company should have received a corporate equivalent to the death penalty. Instead, they received a given it was given a $700 million fine. I think that's laughable. Allowing a breach of such magnitude to even be possible, never mind actually come to pass, you don't deserve to continue to be a company. I think that is even truer for companies dealing with our DNA, right? And it's so easy to play that high and mighty role at give the death penalty for a company until you are the one in that position. I do not believe this person writing this article that they could have done any better of a job than 23andMe, right? You don't know what you don't know until you find out until it hits you, right? Who knew how hard that Mike Tyson punched until he actually punched him, right? I really don't know if people know the difficulties of that you're dealing with securing data, right? And part of the problem that I have with this article is when you put these type of threats out there, especially how else can you get a corporate equivalent of a death penalty if the government doesn't get involved, right? So when you put these type of threats out there, right, that to me that stifles innovation. I think the fact that 23andMe could like bring so many people to like can connect so many people who didn't know about each other. So many people like wondering who their parents are or if they had any long lost relatives and stuff like that. I think that is a net positive for people who care. Like me personally, I don't really give up, right? Um, I, I'm about business, right? But so many people they live in their feelings and it means a lot to them to be able to connect with long lost family members and stuff like that. And to me, I think that's a net positive, right? So 23andMe gets breached. That sucks. I agree. That totally sucks, right? But to say you want them to have a corporate death penalty because of that, to me that's stretching it. Because if the potential of a mistake that or a company gets attacked and they lose that attack, and now that means that everything that they did, right, is by the wayside. They get the death penalty. They do not deserve to continue as a company because they were at the end of the day, they were the victim of a crime, right? So talk about victim blaming, right? 23andMe was the victim of a crime because they got hacked and they got their data stolen, right? Like they could they have done a better job? Sure, but what if somebody didn't properly secure their home, right? And now somebody breaks into it and they steal everything, right? So now we're gonna say, oh well, it's your fault because you didn't properly secure your home. Well, yeah, they could have done a better job, but no, it is the fault of the people who broke into the house and they stole it, right? I advocate you do a better job to protect all of your information, all of your possessions, all of your belongings, right? But at the end of the day, it is not your fault that someone else committed a crime against you, right? Be better prepared, absolutely. But the person who did the crime, they are the criminal, not you, right? And that's why this is like victim blaming. But because it's a large company without a face, whatever, then it's so easy to do, right? But if you were the person who was in that situation, so then you would feel a different way. Let's keep going. So it's time for 23andMe and the DNA testing industry as a whole to realize that they are not just dealing with data; they are dealing with people's lives, their histories, and their futures. It's time they start treating our data with respect and the care it deserves. Right. So, and here's the thing: if you are not comfortable with the potential of through innovation that there's going to be data breaches, leaks, because we hear it every single day. This company gets breached. And honestly, I think that some other breaches that have happened are way, way worse than what happened with 23andMe. They know who's in your family. Okay, so what? Big deal, right? Does it suck? Yes, but I just cannot get on board of saying that you want a company to go out of business because they were the victim of a crime. They're dealing with people's lives. If you don't want 23andMe to deal with your life, then don't sign up for it. Simple as that. It is totally your choice whether you are going to send your DNA information. What about the people who they're on these dating websites and stuff like that, and they become the victim of a crime from those dating websites, right? They chose to be there, right? At the end of the day, the person who committed the crime is still the perpetrator, the criminal. But if you do not feel comfortable with because I don't trust anyone with my personal information, right? I have to be it's a risk. Every time I put my information out there, that's a risk, right? But it's a give and take, right? So I really totally disagree with this whole entire article written by Haj Han Comps, right? Totally disagree. But it is what it is. I think that the whole 23andMe thing is let's go back to full screen, right? So I think the whole 23andMe thing, it does suck what happened to them. It's unfortunate that all these people's information got leaked, but at the same time, 23andMe is also part of they're also a victim of a crime, and to ask for their total annihilation because that they got hacked is, to me, that's unfair. That's victim blaming, and I personally think if you want to share information with them and have find out about your family and stuff like that, then by all means go for it. I'm pretty sure that they're going to beefing up security measures. They're going to add their two-factor authentications, password requirements, and all that type of stuff, right? But at the end of the day, as innovation happens, hackers are going to continue to find new ways to get into systems. They're going to find back doors and all that type of stuff. So if you don't want your information being a victim, then don't sign up for anything, right? Don't put your name anywhere, right? And you're gonna have to live like a hermit, and it is what it is. But yeah, so that's how I feel about it. I was planning on releasing a different video this week. It was a video that was supposed to release last week, but then I saw the 23andMe thing resurfaced, and then I saw this article, which is trying to make them go out of business, and I think that is totally unfair. There are people who, I do think it was a mistake, and they're going to learn from their mistake. And I think that when you're asking for a company to go out of business, you are really trying to put the lives of all of the people who work for that company, who show up to work hard every single day. You're putting them at risk as well, and you have no care, no compassion for those people who are also victims. And they're trying to work hard to rectify it, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, not knowing what new information is coming out. So I think we need to react less with our feelings and be more reactive with our critical thinking and things like that. All right. So with that being said, thank you for watching this episode of The Bug Bite. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can know every time that we go live or drop a new video. Like the video, share the video, all of that good stuff. And if you haven't done so yet, check out the Patreon at www.techcoachralph.dev to see what we have going on in there. There is something for everyone in there, so check me out, hit me up, and I look forward to talking to you again. But until next time, this is Tech Coach Ralph with The Bug Bite signing off.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.